The Greekophile, funny outtakes at end of podcast. All right. So again, Cape is C is what?
Celebratory,
Adventuresome,
adventurous,
adventuresome,
I know adventurous,
adventurous.
purposeful, and extraordinary.
Okay.
I'll
And
I'll
yeah,
text you that.
and
It's also in the second edition. I I have it in the key, what do you call it? A glossary. I
mhm.
have a glossary in both editions. You'll see it there, and I talk about Cape life in the epilogue, talk about Cape life in the prologue, and so it's all over the second edition, so you can't miss it.
All right. Well, I guess we can call you the Cape Crusader. So,
I like it. Thank
so
you. Yeah.
Welcome to Books in Hindsight, the only podcast where hindsight is always 2020. And we explore the great books, works, and ideas of the century. Now, here's your host, teacher, and author, Matthew Hines.
hello, everybody. Obviously, I have Phil Nicozisis and Nick. Phil, if I pronounce that correctly, I assume.
Yes, you did.
Okay. And it's easy to remember because it's Nikos and Isis, like the Greek or the Egyptian goddess. So
Two Greek words.
is that
Nikko means victory, and
uh,
Zisis is like Zoe, life. So my name actually means the victor of life.
well, that is amazing. See that? What a better, I mean, it's like a title for the book right there in the author's name. So
Thank
what
you.
better reason to buy it? But and let's just go. I have to say one more thing before we get off this Greek thing, and that is when I was in the army, my roommate for like 2 years was George Kakelatris,
Okay.
full-blooded Spartan. Came
Okay.
from Chicago, but I mean, you look at the pictures of Alexander, and you look at George,
That
same
was him.
clothes, same
Yeah.
face, everything. And yeah, so it was just amazing. So love it. And I'm so honored to even have you on here, Phil. I love your book. I love the idea of it. So let's get in and let's talk about it. So we have, we have some things I'd like to ask you first, and then whatever you'd like to talk about is really up to you. But the first thing, could you give us a little bit of your background? I mean, we know you're Greek, so let's try something else.
I guess you know that's an interesting question. They say that the two most important days are number one, the day you were born, and the reason why you find out, or you find out why you were born. And I try to meditate a half an hour to an hour a day with transcendental meditation and with trained mantras. But one of the questions I ask myself a lot of times is, who am I? So, and in chapter 9 of my book, which we'll get into it if you recall, that I was in a sacred ayahuasca plant ceremony where we drink this medicine administered by a priest, and you basically hallucinate for 5 hours. And I spend probably 15 pages talking about this, and I remember thinking about who I was actually. And the way I remember it was I just was peeling layers of an onion. Like, all right, I'm Phil Nicozisis. I come from a Greek area of the world that's modern day Greece. I'm a Christian. Like, peel that layer. It was like layers of a costume that I just kept peeling off. My parents are Lou and Helen. They've been married for 57 years. They raised me. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I think I said that. I'm an entrepreneur. I was in the carpet business with my dad in the family business. Peel that layer off. Just, who are you? And but the one thing I'm really strongly about is feel strongly about is veganism and plant-based diet, and basically trying to live your best life in trying to be worthy of a life well lived. And as I traveled and I was doing book signings for the first edition of my book, and as you know, the second edition is out now. We don't have those covers because it's just, as we speak, it's getting printed. It's actually live right now. But if we can sum up, I'm a person who, after now 53 years now into this thing, I want to aspire to continue to make my life and inspire others to make my life and inspire them to live a CAPE life, CAPE life. And that stands for celebratory, adventurous, purposeful, and extraordinary. And whoever we are and whatever we do, we all have gifts, we all have ups, we all have downs. But I'm a person who wants to continue to make my life a CAPE life.
That's amazing. So let's go back to your experience, because that is really interesting. So where, how old were you? What stage of your life were you? And I was not really clear. Where did this happen?
Are you talking about my book?
No, about you too.
Uh,
You
uh,
had this
uh,
experience with the
oh
hallucinogens.
yeah, yeah. So this is chapter 9 in we were in the country of Peru for a
Uh-huh.
month. And so I I knew about it. Actually had a ceremony beforehand, the month before I left for this trip that's based on my memoir. Um, and it was in the mountains of Cusco at about 8,000 feet,
Yeah.
which is kind of hard. I don't do well in high altitudes. I had a terrible migraine headache for many days, but we went and we participated in this retreat center that, you know, specialized in sacred plant ceremonies. And
Mhm.
these shamans, they're like priests. You heard of the word shaman, right? These are like, this is like the real deal. They come from the mountains of Cusco, where Spanish isn't even their first language. They speak a language called Quechuan, which really isn't around anymore. You have to understand the European languages were really the first, and many other languages, but were the first to actually have written letters. So a lot of these languages that died out because they were never written down. So Quechuan is one of those languages. And boy, it was really revealing. It's really introspective, and it can be very positive, but it can also kick your butt. And if you're living a lie, or you're lying to yourself, or there's things that are really weighing you down, it will force you to face it, and hopefully mentally and spiritually metabolize it, and get it out. And it's a
Mhm.
it's very powerful. People call it a drug, but a drug is, what is a drug? A drug is intellectual property made in a laboratory that's based on plants that the pharmaceutical industry can make money from. That's a drug. But plant medicine, that's a whole different thing. That's basically what they're trying to copy in a laboratory. And it's very beneficial, but you have to be healthy. You can't take many pharmaceutical drugs are severely contraindicated with the ayahuasca plant medicine, like the antidepressants and those kind of things. Actually, if you take the plant medicine, you could die. So there was at this retreat center, there was two medical doctors, a psychotherapist, an advocate, the priests, the shamans. It was really quite an experience.
Yeah.
And that's covered in chapter 9 when we were in Peru. I mean, the book is based on, as you can see, it says 12 cities in 12 months. So each chapter is the city that I lived in, 1 month at a time. It's 12 cities, 12 months, 10 countries, 4 continents, with 48 others who, like me, they ran their business from their smartphone and laptop, and we were all strangers on day 1. So if I had to sum it up, what it was like to travel the world with people you didn't know on day 1, it's kind of like a bizarre social experiment.
Exactly. All right. Well, so Phil, I've got to go back because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I saw it on Discover. I saw the ceremony. I saw the people. I saw the place. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm,
And there's a point that they make in here that I want to ask you a question about.
mhm,
And the point that they make is that in Western culture, we use drugs to basically forget, to become somebody
mhm,
else. That because we can't really live with the life that we've made for ourselves. in these cultures, especially ancient cultures, drugs and these experiences are more for reaching a spirituality. So, so our
Very good
drugs,
point. Very good point.
well, but well, it's not really my point; it's their point. Although, yeah, I mean,
You're humble. You're a humble guy.
well,
Yeah.
but in your book, are we going to? Um, I mean, that's a very eye-opening experience. Is your book full of like these? You know, you had an experience basically where you got to see yourself for what you really are. And did your travel kind of, are we going to see a lot of that in the book? A new, maybe a new way of looking at Phil that he didn't see before?
Well, if you know, there are two types of people who read the book: those who knew me or know me, and those who don't know me. And I just had somebody, a business friend or colleague that I don't is not a personal friend, call me up and said, "Man, I read your book," and he says, "I got to tell you, that was definitely you talking." Okay, so um, readers are going to get a, warts and all, imperfections and ups and all ups and downs. They're going to get a pretty a strong, I guess I call it an opinion, and across a whole range of topics.
Mhm.
As I traveled the world, I like to say I looked for the deeper meaning of things, but actually what happened was the deeper meaning found me. And so whether we're talking about runaway inflation in Argentina and what those reasons are, and how I experienced, and the price of apples walking from my apartment to the workspace would change just from one day to the next with the little street signs that they put on the sidewalk. The price of apples would change, or being almost almost run over like a herd of buffaloes by like 1,000 electric union utility protesters that were protesting their paychecks were getting diminished because of runaway inflation, and lighting a bonfire right there. It's in one of the pictures you can see in the middle of the book, lighting a bonfire right in front of me. Um, and then I explain why. And then going to Japan, and on New Year's Day, we're taking part in a ceremony, and thinking about the idea of worshiping your ancestors, which I'd never really considered before. And just so many interesting things happen. Everything from profound things to maybe in chapter, is it chapter, yeah, chapter 5, saving my brother. I mean, some of these guys that I traveled with became my brothers,
Mhm.
and I get choked up sometimes just thinking about it. But saving him from probably a drug overdose was pretty real, and interesting. Well, not interesting. It was beyond interesting. It was just one of those things that you just don't happen to. It just doesn't happen in everyday life. I mean, this 12 cities, 12 months thing and 4 continents around the world was just like fitting. I don't know. I was gonna say one lifetimes, but in many ways, there's like seems like I was able to get several lifetimes in 1 year of travel.
Mhm.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to get all kinds of opinions of former communist countries, for example. um Former, you talk to an Uber driver, a young Uber driver, he was doing Uber as a hustle. He had a walking tour company for the tourists, and he was going to school, and he was probably maybe doing coding on the side. Okay, so he was doing great post communism. And you got an older Uber driver, or if you're in a place where Uber doesn't work or it's illegal, or you get a taxi driver, it's an older guy, and you ask him about how things used to be,
Mm.
and he missed it.
Yeah.
So, and I really try to, and so it's very personal. I really try to wax across, the political and the social and the um, economics, but then I also tried to, not that I tried to, I think it just happened. I just very personal stories that I, share, that I
Okay.
share.
Well, Phil, I got to ask you before we go into my line of questioning, what influenced your decision on the 12 cities? What made you pick those particular cities?
Well, actually, I didn't pick them.
Okay.
I traveled with which is great, because took all the guesswork out. I traveled with a company called Remote Year, which you can find at remoteyear.com, which they just started up again, given everything that's been going on. They closed things down for a while, but they set up the 12-month itinerary that was etched in stone, and all we had to do, I mean, all, so to speak, was pay them every month for our apartment, our ticket to the next place, our workspace, and they had these great programs. They had these field trips that you would not, that you would not get as just a tourist. And because we were there a month at a time, that's the other thing. You really feel like you go from a traveler or tourist to a resident. I mean, by the third week, I'm walking with a little bounce in my step in the city of Prague, because I know where I'm going. I got my favorite grocery store. I got my yoga studio. I even have my tailor to repair clothes or something. I've got my favorite bars and restaurants, and I got my Wi-Fi codes, that my iPhone picks up right when I walk into the workspace or wherever. And then by the fourth week, you're like, I live here, right? And then just as all that just becomes, you get to know your way around the city, it was like, boom, we gotta throw all our stuff in our luggage and get on an airplane and go on to the next place, and the whole thing would start over again, which is really, I was actually scared. The last month, Matt, and it was in Mexico City, Ciudad de Mexico. I took Spanish lessons for 6 months when we were in South America and Mexico. I remember the last day, like packing up my stuff, and I was thinking, man, am I going to be bored going home? Like I was missing that thrill of like our program directors, the people that traveled with, there's 2 staff that traveled with us. Like, here's, you're at where we're going. Let's be for pickup to the airport. We're going here. This is your new apartment. This is, and that thrill of the frontier, it was like, oh my God, what am I going to do back home? Am I going to be bored? So, but at the same time, and I write about that, you really get a sense for this. I was so ready to go home. I was so done. I mean, I had a broken foot for 2 of the months. I was hobbling around in a boot cast and out through Argentina and part of Peru. And I had, aches and pains from bad mattresses. I was just by month 7, many of us had started to leave the program, and many of us were talking about how burned out we were. So by month 8, I was like, all right, well, I can, I made a deal with myself, and a bunch of us made a deal with each other that we were going to make it through the 12 months no matter what. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, I guess you could say. But gosh, looking back, how lucky I was and the others were to be able to do something. I mean, think about what's going on in the world today, how this is not even possible, even though things are opening up. I mean, they're talking craziness. And that's actually one of the things I point out in the 2nd edition. I have a nice little forward, a nice little essay, just pointing out like what a I'll use a fancy word, juxtaposition it is between today's world and the inability to transverse. Is that the right word? Yeah, transverse freely in between countries. We left Thailand, 3 weeks in to go to Singapore to break up our travel visa, and spent the weekend at the Mandalay or the Sands Resort, that crazy hotel with the world's largest pool in Singapore on the top. I talk about that. And then back to Thailand to like reset the visa, because we were there for 35 days, not 30. And then we went through, I gave a lecture on veganism in Kathmandu, Nepal. From Malaysia. The Malaysian people asked me to do a presentation there. And that's actually, I talk about that. I witnessed a commuter jet crash. 38 people perished, and that was so it was just such this mix of incredible highs and like serious awakenings and just some spiritual. There's also a love story. I met, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but in the 2nd edition, my wife I met in Thailand, we got married this year. And so that was,
congratulations.
thank you.
have to
Thank you.
say that. Wow.
Yeah, so that's some big news. And
Well,
the
Phil, can
second,
I just stop you for a second? Having been to Thailand,
yeah,
when I saw those women, I could not believe how beautiful they are. So
yeah,
congratulations to you.
thank you.
Good. As they say in Australia, good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate. Good on you, mate. Well, as they say in London, wait, here, let me get this. They said, cheers, big ears.
Ah, yes. Cheers.
Cheers, big ears.
Okay, so you got a wife in Thailand. Well, let me jump in here for a second because you are in your book. Are you going around? Are you coming out as and you know, Phil, you know that I don't know how much you know about me, but spent a lot of time traveling myself. Spent a lot of
Mhm.
time in the Middle East teaching. And one thing that happens to Americans overseas or anybody is all of a sudden you're not you anymore. You are people look at you differently. People now you are the stranger, right? And it doesn't matter. You stick out. People can always spot an American. So
Yeah, you know.
suddenly you're not in McDonald's land. And
Mhm.
over time, are we going to see a sense in the book of a change in you as you become, I know you had your, I guess it wasn't peyote, but your experience there, but
Yeah.
that and your other experiences, are we going to see a change in you as we go through the book?
People have said they can see that I did change.
Mhm.
And I didn't try to make it that way. Um, but you are right. First of all, plopping down into a team of strangers that we travel with, and that, roommates. I had roommates for the first time since college.
Mhm.
So, now I wasn't this Palm Beach entrepreneur who had all of this stuff and people and regalia. I don't know if it's words just flying in my head around me. I was just this guy named Phil
Mhm.
who had a couple suitcases, and my room was over there sharing a bathroom, um, with two other guys, that I basically either just met or, 4 months into it. Now we're really into the drill. And yeah, so you strip away. I was absolutely stripped away. You know, I wasn't in my element,
Mhm.
and that forces you to be real. The
Yep.
other thing is I never done the street before. And so at the end, I talk about how at the epilogue, I talk about how I probably walked about 5 miles a day wherever I was.
Mhm.
And I said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think that makes me street. I mean, I really felt like by the end I was street because I had walked everywhere, and I saw the neighborhoods. I saw the fancier ones that where the expats are.
Mhm.
Then I saw the barrios of Colombia, Comuna 13, for example, where you probably shouldn't be, and you definitely don't want to go at night. And I will say, yeah, I actually joke. Okay, so if you can see here, well, from you've had the book. There's these, see those boxes.
Mhm.
So those boxes have what's called Philfacts, Phacts, no filter, Philter, and what's the other? There's Phil Food, and there is uh, Philfacts, Phil Food.
Fill me in.
Um, oh yeah, no filter. Oh, Phil Feelings, Peelings,
Okay.
and um, so Phil Feelings. Yeah, it's just I'm reliving this here. It's so funny. So one of the Phil facts, like for example, um, that I say no filter. That that I'm pretty sure the term resting bitch face was invented in the Czech Republic because
Mhm.
smiling didn't exactly come easy to these people. But again, when you got to know them just a little bit, they're very warm,
Mm.
and really all over the world, people were nice. Maybe I'm going to get in trouble for saying it, but my book, it's not out to like be an ambassador or a diplomat. It's really, there's some very provoking kind of poking, maybe I might even poke at people. There's a whole thing I keep referring back to, the idea of racism. Like, what really is racism? Or like, I saw racism around the world. Like, we don't have racism in the United States. That's a pile of crap.
I
Okay,
know. Yeah,
you want
people
to see
don't realize
racism?
that.
People, I mean, I would have these people would go off on me, just like Croatia, the northern Croatians versus the southern Dalmatians. I mean, they hate each other because they look different, and they think that the southern Dalmatians are lazy, and then the southern Dalmatians in Croatia think that the northerns are like robotic Germans, and just little stuff like that. I mean, South America is filled with all of that, and of course, everyone in Asia hates the Japanese, and the Malaysians pick on the Indians and the Chinese in Malaysia, and they're
I
the
know.
ones that
I've been
fill the
through
jam.
all that. I was in the
And then
Middle
I did,
East, so
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I know. It's
So here's the
rampant. And
thing.
what's
So,
so funny is all these people that are horribly racist in their own country come here and say, "Oh, these Americans are racist."
right, exactly. There's that. Exactly
So
right.
anyway, and all I have to say about that, Phil, about racism is
I go
that,
there though. I go there in the book though. So that's one
yeah,
of the
well,
things I'm
good,
proud of.
good. Because a
Yeah,
lot of people wouldn't discuss that, but it comes in all colors and forms, and it's all stupid. So, but I think
it's all
touching
stupid.
on
That's
racism, I think that you found in your street environment that people are all the same everywhere, and they're all generally nice and will try to help you out whenever they can, except in America. It used
yeah.
to be different, but I've been, like I said, Middle East, Nepal, India,
Mhm.
Thailand, all those countries, and those people were just bent over backwards for me.
That's right. I totally agree. I'll give you
So
an example.
yeah.
And I talk about this at the month 6. We were 3 months in Asia. After month 6, then we went to South America for 6 months. And going from Asia and Japan and Malaysia and Thailand, where everything was, punctual and no drama and non-confrontational. I land in Argentina and everyone's yelling at each other. It's like it's and people's tempers are like hair trigger. I'm like, what's I was literally shocked. And and I came to realize very quickly that it was really this like tension, among other things. It's cultural. I mean, the first thing the taxi driver said to me was that they're from Italy and Spain, and they got all the bad and none of the good in their from their culture. And he says, how does an Argentinian commit suicide? And I said, how? He says, he climbs to his ego and he jumps off. So I'm in Argentina and really not liking it. And then I broke my foot. But the thing that won me over was what I call the kissing culture in Argentina. They go around kissing each other all day long. I noticed at the grocery store when the shift changed, that the new shift would come in, and they spent, because the line was so long, they had these archaic systems. It would literally take you like an hour to check out at the grocery store. So I'm watching, and that's a whole other topic. I talk about that in the book too. Also, long lines at the ATM,
Mhm.
and the public sector spending, and the limited cash that they have, and people would literally wait hours, 10 blocks for an ATM to pull cash out. But I digress. But they literally, I would watch them because I'm stuck in a line, and they literally go around kissing each other like the first half an hour of their shift. And this is across all the businesses that I went to. I'm thinking to myself, gosh, if this was the United States, there'd be like 20 lawsuits for sexual harassment by lunchtime. So even though Argentina and I didn't get along the whole time, my point about that is, and I say this explicitly in my memoir, is that the Argentinian people literally kissed their way into my heart,
Yeah.
because
Well,
in spite of everything, yeah.
you got to stay away from their filling up culture. I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere. Kissing is okay, but when you start getting felt up, you gotta leave
Yeah,
that one alone.
yeah. There you go.
So, but that is so interesting, Phil. All right. Well, look, we gotta backtrack here because we are almost running out of time. You're so interesting. I
Thank
told
you.
Phil at the beginning that we'd probably do an hour, maybe a little bit more. If we ever go into scuba diving, that's going to be it. We could be here for a week, but I really have some questions that you would want to ask Phil as somebody who's probably going to read his book. And why did you pick, why did you pick writing? Why, was there another way you could have expressed this? Why writing?
Well, I will say that I want to then take this opportunity to mention that my memoir is also available on audiobooks in my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I read for 9 hours, which was, they say writing a book's the closest that a man will ever come to childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to believe that because besides writing it, which took 6 months, and I'll explain why I wrote it, besides writing it, which took, like I said, 6 months to write, and then another 6 months to edit and produce and publish. So basically took a year. So the studio, I have a record, one of my other sidelines, I guess you could say, it's more than a hobby because I'm with Universal Records for television and movie jingles, but I have a recording studio in my home. I'm a guitar player. And so I was able to read the book, with good equipment, like they do in real productions, and it's now in audiobooks in my own voice. But I wrote the book because my mom told me to. It's the long and short. Just, and speaking of my parents, they've been married 58 years now. The book has a dedication page, and I dedicated to my parents. I said, "Thank you, Mom and Dad, for believing in me most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Dad, I'm so lucky you were born before me," which is like a little inside joke. But the year abroad was, in a way, I was 50 years old, and it's not a crisis. It wasn't a midlife crisis, just like a midlife, you know what? It's time I get out of my comfort zone and do something that just no one probably, very few people will ever have the opportunity to do. So that's step one. Step two, I'm on this trip and I'm like, I really should write a book. And I was going to write a book. I actually started to write a book on veganism. And then my mom was the one very early on who said, you really should write a book about this trip. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm going to do something else. But something about it just said, you know what, that's the actual right answer. So what I did from day one, Matt, is I kept a digital diary on everything I thought was cool or meaningful. It wasn't just about cool stuff. I wanted also, and people will get the sense that the book has, like I said, I look for the deeper meaning, but the deeper meaning of things found me. And in addition to that, and this was very helpful, I created a private Facebook page that just me and a few others had access to, where I basically uploaded photos and captions of stuff that I thought was worthy. And so between my digital diary and then, like, in month 4 or 5, I'm like, I just, whatever, I wasn't gaining ground with the book I was writing. I woke up one day, I'm like, oh my God, have laptop will travel. And once I had the title, that's also part of the why. It was really provoked me. Once I had the title, and then soon after in a yoga class somewhere, where was I? It must have been in Asia. In a yoga class, I had this idea of me sitting a laptop at Machu Picchu, which I knew we were going to, pretending to work, and as if we really have, cell phone or Wi-Fi reception there, which they don't. And once I had this vision, the title and this cover idea, then it just, in a way, the book wrote itself. Mm-hmm. And so the Facebook page, the private Facebook page, and the digital diary really served as an outline mm-hmm. to just bang out content. And I wrote the book myself. I did have my sister, travel sister, Lauren. She was a project coordinator. She helped me with content and organizing and synthesizing between my diary and my Facebook page, and then making an outline. She helped me with the outline, and then I wrote the book. But I guess you asked me what time it was, and I told you how they make the watch. So I apologize if I was a little long in that one.
No, that's okay. But that really leads up to my next question.
What's that?
How did you organize the book? I mean, is it chronological or what?
Yeah, it's totally chronological. 12 cities, 12 months. And so each, so that was the order. Chapter 1, Split, Croatia, then Prague, then Lisbon, then Kyoto, Japan, then Chiang Mai, Thailand, then Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, then 2 months in Argentina, Buenos Aires, Cordoba, then Lima, Peru, 2 months in Colombia, Medellin and Bogota, and then Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico. So that was the order we traveled with. And I think that I didn't try it, but 12 chapters, and I've heard from people who say they're either from a certain country and they go right to that chapter, or they're thinking of traveling to Asia and they've never been to Asia, and then they go right to Asia. And it just it seemed to so many things about this book that just seemed to fall into place. And a lot of that has to do with I had some good editors and the publisher. One of my readers, I had these readers, they correct your grammar and stuff. Not even, what I learned is not even pick the best author. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say not even Shakespeare, okay, was completely self-writing. Okay, he probably had some editors that helped him correct some grammar or something, right?
Or the Duke of somebody who they found out was actually Shakespeare. I don't know if you've heard that story, but
I haven't heard that one. Wow,
but that's a different tangent. Well,
that's a different tangent.
All right, so the book is organized according to chronological, but
That's
inside you have your little Phil vignettes, right?
Right, Phil
If
facts.
that's the Phil facts, or I think you should have said fill us in, or let me fill you in, or something.
Well, it just, you can go on and on with it,
You can.
So no filter, PHI, so, no filter. Why don't the leaders and followers of Christianity adhere to the original teachings of their religion? Where were the Christian food stores? Because in Thailand, there was Buddhist stores where you can assume that the food was all vegan. And so I try not to be too preachy, but I guess I was a little preachy there. So
yeah.
So there you go.
All right. Well, we don't have a lot of time left here, and I still want to talk to you about your process. All right. So you've told us that it took about a year to write. You wrote it, and can we just ask, is this a published book by a publisher or self-published? How do we classify it?
Yeah. So you know what, this would be self-published, but I used a company called Bestseller Publishing out of Los Angeles. That what they do is it's very reasonable too, the price. They take your written manuscript and then they send it back to you. I mean, you send them, you think you're sending them Bambi, and they send you back Freddy Krueger. Yeah, like it's just completely just marked up, and you have to go through and basically approve or disapprove or negotiate. They call it, it's brutal. Like I said, it's the closest the man will ever come to childbirth. Okay, it just, and you're close to the work. I mean, I spent 6 months writing this thing, 12 months living it, and then they send you back 3,000 edits. Each one is a serious consideration. But the one thing I had for my own rule, and I told them, I said, please, I actually had 2 rules. My mom can't be embarrassed, by something that's in there, and I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to come off like an a-hole or look stupid. Those are the only things I really care about, And then you got to go. So they send you back this thing, and you got to go through, and you what is it, with the Acrobat Reader, and basically in the sidelines, approve, disapprove, question it, whatever. So there's what they call content editing, which is well, last chapter you said that their independence was in 1562, but here you have it as 1600. Which one is it? There's and all kinds of things like that. Then after all that, then there's a proofreader, because then there's an editor after the content editing, which is somewhat related. But at the end of all that, like I said, there's a proofreader, and they actually have to send that out to a third party because the editors are too close to the work. You can't even trust them to proofread it.
Yeah.
This is the process, okay? Then the proofreader brings it back, and then you got the whole, and this is really where a company like Bestseller Publishing does good work, which is, they take your photos. I don't know how to format a book.
Yeah.
I wrote it, but I don't know how to, this is like, and then all the boxes, like the Phil facts, the segues. What did you call them? Phil something?
Fill us in. Fill us in.
You had a term for them though. Little missives.
I don't. I'll have to think about it.
Okay. All right. Good.
My mind moves pretty quickly. Once I passed it, it's gone. So
yeah, I'm actually the same way. I really relate to that. And so they worked on the cover. Like I said, I had the vision of the cover the whole time, but they're just helped me formulate everything. And then what they do after that, they put it on Amazon. So with little or no marketing, I sold almost 7,000 books,
wow.
which is really, really, they say, for me, it was good because I made all my money back. So with this second edition, what I'm thinking of doing actually is putting a little money behind it, and with a broker who tells me that he can probably get shelf space on Barnes and Noble, and perhaps with the bestseller, with Barnes and Noble, and maybe even USA Today, but we haven't worked that out yet. So that's a little bit. That is the process. Basically, there's a lot of companies that will do this for you, and at the end of the day, it's still your self-publishing, but they put it all together for you. So I would recommend, it's just, there's too many things to figure out on your own. I would totally recommend doing it with the company.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful book. And everything that you said, Phil, I've got 6 books. I did it all by myself. And I'm the guy, I teach English, right? So I don't need, I'm going to have one of your editors, Abby, is
Abby Loebner.
Yeah. So I'm going to have her on here.
She was one of my readers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to have her on here, and we're going to go over the process, and we're going to argue it out. Should I, use an editor, or can I do it myself? And she's reading one of my books now, so I know she's going to come back and say,
"Oh my God,
probably you should get an editor." So,
first of all,
we'll see. I'm,
mark my words. She's going to find typos that are hiding out in plain sight. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but yeah, and I would totally. So she's the one that said that recommended that the chapter start off with a quotation that perhaps is a foreshadowing of the tone, or sets the tone for the chapter. And then once I heard that, I'm like, that's the greatest idea. I'm so glad I thought of it. And I went through, and for example, Kuala Lumpur, it says here, travel's the only thing you buy that makes you richer. That's the upcoming quote. But that's a generic one. That's actually not my favorite one. Prague, where is it? Prague is my favorite one, because Prague says some people think that they prefer ebooks instead of books because they say books take up space. But so the Sistine Chapel takes up space. Your children take up space, and the city of Prague, it takes up space too. Meaning it's just incredibly beautiful. And it's spellbinding, otherworldly architecture, and from centuries ago, it just creates a feeling. It's just a magical city, and so that was her. Someone like that's going to give you ideas to actually enhance your work. That's my point with someone like Abby.
Is that Abby's quote about taking up space?
No, I was able to search the internet. So Chapter 2, Prague. What did I put in? Prague in Google, I guess.
Yeah.
Prague city quotes. That's what I did for each city, like Kyoto quotes. And so Kyoto was a good one. The Secretary of War, World War II. Back then, our government called our military the Secretary of the Department of War.
Yeah.
At least they were honest. Now we call it Department of Defense. Yeah. They were honest back then. So the Secretary of War
over to Department of War after the war. So
yeah. So he said the quote for Kyoto is our Secretary of War from World War II. under no circumstances, I told them under no circumstances would I allow anyone from our military to bomb the city of Kyoto unless under my direct orders.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is it's a spiritual city. It's the spiritual head of Japan. It was the capital for 1,000 years. It's filled with temples. It's filled with monks, and it's just, having lived there for a month, I have so much respect for a guy who drops bombs for a living, not to drop bombs on Kyoto.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Yeah, that was Henry Stimson. See, never talk to a history major or play Trivial Pursuit.
wow,
It's just annoying.
you
Okay.
didn't even have to crack the book. You just put that out. You just
Yep.
said it.
Well,
Okay.
anyway, I know a lot about World War II too. So anyway, let's go back to our discussion here. And and you've done a great job of discussing your publishing process, because for writers, that is just, you have to make thousands of decisions, and every
That's right.
one is going to affect whether or not that book sells. So yeah, and then I really liked how you mentioned about you don't know about formatting, because that's a whole nother thing right there. There's a lot of decisions. Um,
And they don't know best. Guess what? They don't know about writing. So
yeah.
like there's everybody's specialties come together in this process. It's really incredible.
Hmm.
It's like giving birth, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there, because the one thing Abby won't have a problem with me is I do use quotes at the beginning of my things. So
Great.
all right, so I'm off the hook on that, but I'm sure I'm just going to get it. So I'm not even looking forward to that.
Okay,
But
good.
we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking to Abby in a like about a month or so. So we're going to be mentioning your book as well, and she's going to be talking about that process. So we're going to be seeing it again. So
That's
it's
great.
going to be exciting. But I have to tell you, as a person I spent a lot of time overseas. I spent like 13 years between Oman and Saudi Arabia. And so I've been all these different places,
Speak
and
Arabic? Speak languages?
I only know enough to say I don't speak Arabic.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's it. I probably speak more German than I speak
Hmm.
Arabic, but I don't speak much of that. And the reason is because I was trying so hard to teach them English that so I spent all my time trying to figure out how to teach these guys English that don't want to learn it. But anyway,
Hmm. Hmm.
you live, in America, when you come back here, you go, my gosh, this is Disneyland. These people do not have a clue as to what's really life is really like. People have cultures that are thousands of years old out there, and
Hmm.
they are proud of those cultures. And we're just this hodgepodge of
Hmm.
all these different people that have no respect, no understanding of those people, and no idea what they even live like. And so I love your book. I think
Thank
that
you.
you did a great job of uh, putting yourself as an American in other places. But um, I have to ask you this: spiritually, did you come out? Did you come out more spiritual? And as your readers read the book, are they going to see a spiritual side and maybe get a little spirituality themselves?
Yeah, so I point again to chapter 9 with the ayahuasca ceremony, and
Okay.
really what happens to me during the ceremony, and then the I'll call it the afterglow, the after effect.
Hmm.
And I definitely, I gave up alcohol after that for a couple months, and
Hmm.
just really I was meditating more. And I talk about the process of transcendental meditation, which I still practice daily. And I talk about yoga, and it's just I don't I I don't think my spirituality glows in the dark as much as my veganism does in this book. I will say that. Um, I think I think I think what I came away with after when I wrote this book, and then the last chapter, and then the epilogue, and flying home and sitting next to a stranger and telling them about my trip, which I write about. It's just I just feel like I'm just trying to be a well-rounded human,
Hmm.
and um, trying to be worthy of a life well lived, and trying to get the most of the human experience. And again, I like to talk about this thing called the Cape life: celebratory, adventurous, purposeful, and extraordinary. And the way I came about that was I've done book signings, before this craziness hit, I did dozens of book signings on both sides of the United States and a total of 3 countries. And with a PDF slide of photos and basically a lot of the things we talked about, and the main stories, excuse me, the main stories in my book, some of the main stories. And I just came up with it one day, just celebratory, adventurous, purposeful, and extraordinary. And when I started doing that toward the second half of my book signings, people would they'd shake their head like this, stand and clap just in enthusiasm. And I just, again, like the whole point of the book is to inspire others, like not to say, hey, look at me and all this cool stuff I'm doing. It's really to inspire others that they can make their lives, the best that it can be, knowing that in the human experience, there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, and nobody's suggesting it's just going to be, sunshine and rainbows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at least all sunshine and rainbows.
Phil, you could be a modern Ulysses,
Okay, yeah,
out there having adventures, and I like the idea. And when you mentioned Cape, all the way back at the beginning of the interview, I wanted to say, I just wanted to ask if that was a result of I never can say that right, Ayahuasca experience.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Not directly, but the thing about taking part in the plant ceremony is things come out like way down the line. Like years later, you can be unpacking and experiencing or getting some kind of message, that comes out, way down the line. And if you don't catch yourself, you wouldn't even think that it probably came from the sacred plant ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when I watched that, and this is just kind of, it's kind of about the book, but then it's kind of not. So did you go into what you would consider another state of being, another dimension?
Yeah.
Okay. And would you like to, do you remember it? Like you remember it perfectly and all that?
Well, it's maybe not as vivid as it was. And in some ways, I would like to do another plant ceremony just to continue to maybe refresh and reset. But what I did understand was that when we pass out of this body, each of us will be able to travel, assuming we're not atheists and we believe that there's something else beyond this physical life. I understood that you'll be able to travel really fast, like from one planet to another. I mean, planet meaning euphemistically, but you'll be able to travel just totally other sides of like whatever that is of space and time so fast. And that was just one thing. And actually I first heard about that in a book called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, which is one of my favorite books. And he talks about other planetary dimensions for spirits and souls. And maybe that's my mind, laying out a foregone conclusion, but it came to me separately. And then I put the two together like, oh, I'd heard about that before. But does that answer your question? What was even the question?
Well,
I get so tied up.
The question was really about, do you remember like the dimension that you went to or whatever? And kind of, I was just trying to lead back into, just the interchange and how much that affected you when you came back here, and how much we're going to see of that in the book.
Yeah. So what happened in the book was I was really down at that point, chapters 8 ends when I broke my foot and I had my cast. And then, so you can see there's this thing where like myself and the others are really troughing in terms of the travel thrill. And after the ceremony, I was like, first of all, I was healed. I had some respiratory infection that within one weekend with 2 ceremonies, like all that gurgle came up in ceremony. Like we were all vomiting and spitting up, and it's called the purge. It's part of the process. And I literally at the end of that weekend had the lungs of a baby. So, when you can breathe again really well, like Do you think that's going to enhance your mood? It's like, of course it will, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so I was renewed. I was renewed, you know. But, you know, like every renewal, there's always the reason for a renewal is that you needed to be renewed, and that's why people go back into ceremony, or that's why they can continue spiritual development, because it really never ends or concludes, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I just have a couple more questions, Phil, and I'll release you to your devices. The first
Yeah.
one is is this your first book?
This is my first book.
Okay. The second one is you've got it. I just want to make this clear to people. You've got it on audio. It's on Amazon. Is there any other place we can get it?
Yeah, actually, um, I have a handle, a social media handle called The Traveling Vegan. And I have a YouTube channel called The Traveling Vegan, where we've conducted some shows on YouTube about the book. And then just this week, we released on the Traveling Vegan YouTube channel, we released a 45-minute PowerPoint with me standing behind a green screen with the slides and the photos from my trip, going through chapter by chapter. It's about 45 minutes long, and or maybe it's an hour now.
Mhm.
I try to keep it to 45, but yeah, so they can actually get, like, I'll say a live synopsis, you could say,
Mhm.
from the Traveling Vegan YouTube show about the book.
Okay. And let me make this clear to everybody. I will put the links to all of Phil's books, his audiobooks, etc., and his YouTube stuff in the description of the YouTube video. So, and you can
Thank you
also
so
get this
much. Thank you.
on podcast, and we're going to be doing a blog about this. So, Phil, the next question I want to ask you is, do you have, okay, on the, well, I guess I want to get to the vegan thing.
Mhm.
In the book, are you going around, are you a vegan at this time? And are you having any problems as a vegan, on this trip?
That was actually one of the cool things, is I ate famously. Actually, I, gained a few pounds eating so well as a
Oh,
vegan.
yeah.
One of the main ways I was able to do that, Matt, was this app called Happy Cow. And it's basically like Yelp for vegans. Have you heard of it?
No, I
Happy
haven't.
Cow. Yeah, so you subscribe, or you register, and then wherever you are in the world, you just press the button, and it tells you either there's filters. So either the strictly vegan restaurants or restaurants with vegan options. So I mean,
Wow.
we can be the most obscure places in the world, and there will always be a Happy Cow option coming up. Also found in Peru, there was on Sundays a vegan farmers market. Everything from cookies and to produce to goods. I got a cool backpack um, made from cotton that said "Go Vegan" on it, and I still wear it. It's actually falling apart. It's actually falling apart just from wear and tear, and I feel like one of those children with the security blanket that gets, after the wash, gets down to this big, like it's on its last legs, but I won't give it up. So yeah, so it was extremely vegan, extremely easy to eat vegan, and I did use the Remote Year platform to share my passion for veganism. And that's a whole other, I do need to write a vegan book, so maybe I'll be lucky enough to be on your show again to talk about that. But as a Abby, you mentioned our friend Abby, who you're going to do a show with. She and I went to the same healing center where we got our health educator degree through an intensive 9-week program right here in West Palm Beach. And I'm so blessed to have met, like, Abby and so many other people that are part of this community of health educators. So I felt compelled. This is going back like 7 years ago. I started doing talks, like, why be vegan and what's vegan all about. And I'd go to libraries. I ended up teaching a couple classes at the Institute as a volunteer. So by the time I went on this incredible 1-year modern day odyssey, I was canvassing just for fun. I would go to Facebook and find the vegan groups of that city. and I'd say, hey, I'm Phil Nicozisis, I'm health educator, here's some of my YouTube stuff, and I give a 45-minute talk plus Q and answer. Like, I'd be happy to do that. And many times they would say great, and I'd go and I'd do a presentation. So that was that was part of giving back, and it was just, I get a good feeling talking about sharing the vegan message and the idea of our health, not just from a physical perspective, but our mental health, our spiritual health, our societal health, and our environmental health. So people are like, well, what's that? And I say, well, how do we expect to have a society where we treat each other well as long as there's violence required by our food choices? And that's nice philosophy, but let's connect the dots of history. And that is that the institution of war started over the fight over animals and getting more animals, because animals always meant wealth. Is the first get rich quick scheme that ever was invented. And I do talk about how modern day voluntary exchange free market capitalism is only a couple hundred years old. And that allows all of us to get better in life. But through the ages and thousands of years, it was the kings that had all the wealth, and all the wealth was with the animals. And so they would go to war over the animals. And once they got those animals, then they had to get more land and more water. And then whoever wasn't killed in battle, the second institution that's a direct result of animal agriculture is slavery, because then they became the property of the victors. So really, if you give me 45 minutes and a lectern in the front of a room and a microphone, I'll basically explain to you why the world is screwed up because people eat animals. And that's without trying to preach, or nobody's better. We're all wounded. We're all born into a society where we're taught that we need to eat animals to be healthy and strong. So even us vegans, we're all wounded. We're born into a world. The one thing that's common in the whole world is the fact that all of our societies are organized around animal agriculture. And so it's this like invisible trance where everything it touches gets destroyed, starting with their own bodily health. And so I'm very passionate about sharing that message.
Yeah, and you just cost me my American Cattleman's endorsement. So thanks a lot for that.
Well, we're not live. You could edit it out, right?
No, I'm kidding. All right. No, it's a great message, and it's actually true. And I'm just, you're preaching to the choir. I know all this stuff you're talking about, but it's the same as everything else. You have a whole world to convince, and it takes time. So, have you ever done on the vegan thing? Just as an example, when I went to Oman, I started eating Indian food, so I never ate meat, and I didn't miss it because I just love Indian food so much.
Me too.
My wife's from India, so
oh, great.
Because I wanted Indian food. So what a creep I am. Now my wife is beautiful, and I got like how they say trophy. No, she is what you call a wonder wife, because you look at her and you go, I wonder what she's doing with him. So,
okay, that's great.
So anyway, well, Phil, I don't want to keep you all day. I sure do want to keep you all day, because we haven't talked about scuba diving, and that's a whole nother thing. But you didn't do it on your trip, I assume, because you
actually
were...
yes, chapter 5 in Thailand. My buddy flew in from West Palm Beach here, and we flew to Phuket from Chiang Mai. And we boarded a liveaboard for 5 days, eat, sleep, and dive in the Andaman Islands, which is a string of islands to the west. And it was pretty good. It wasn't. I have a lot to compare it to. I've been to 18 water columns around the world. I have 739 log dives. Half of them are right out here in Florida, the Palm Beach County, the Atlantic coast here, which is fantastic diving.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it was actually I think it's a Phil fact, is the collapse of our marine ecosystem because people eat fish. And so in Thailand, we noticed we didn't see one shark in our dives, which if you're a diver, you love sharks. They're not your friends. They're not pets. We respect them. We don't play with them. They're sharks, but we love to see them. And when you see a resident shark on a reef system, you know that the reef is healthy. But when there's no fish, or there's no sharks, there's just just everything, if the ocean becomes this like static lake, we're all in trouble.
Yep.
We're all in trouble, and it all has to do with industrial trawling, industrial aquaculture, which is really just leading to the collapse of our ecosystem. And I'm not an environmentalist. You know what I am? All of us should be conservationists.
Yeah, exactly.
And because environmentalism implies so many things that aren't necessarily true, which is again for another topic, but we should be conservationists. And in Thailand, it was sad to see that there was definitely a depletion of marine life.
Yeah. I'll just tell you this very quickly. I went to Koh Tao for the specific purpose of seeing whale sharks. And that was the worst diving I've ever done. We just swam around a big, well, I did a dive off of Muscat, Oman once, was about comparable. There's nothing there. You're just like diving in the desert, and they just took us around a big rock, and
it's
so, but no whale sharks, no, nothing really. So thousands of divers.
I don't like those dives like that where you're looking for that one thing.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of rare that you're going to run into that one thing. And again, you're standing around looking at nothing.
Yeah. And I went all the way from Oman just to, it's whale shark season. It's time to go to Thailand. So, All right. Well, Phil, we are going to have to meet up sometime. We're going to have to do a more podcast. But before I go, I just need to ask you a question. The second edition, what's the difference between the second and the first edition?
Okay. Well, do we have another hour?
Oh, we don't.
We don't. Okay. So here's what it is.
We have as much time as you want. So you feel free.
Yeah. So 3,000 edits and changes. That's what's different.
Okay.
So I worked with a new reader, and what happened was I read a book by my friend whose name is Travis King, called Not That Anyone Asked, and it's on Amazon. And he was a digital nomad for 7 years, and he did it as a backpacker in hostels, and he was a partier, and he had threesomes in the common area of the hostel with girls he never knew their name. Like it was a really incredible book, like wilder than mine, way wilder. But the thing that really got me was the writing style blew me away. And I was like, even though this really holds its own, the truth is, I was like, I need to upgrade my writing style. So I worked with a fellow named Tom, and we literally forensically went through the manuscript. And we, instead of walking through the streets of Lisbon, I traversed, things like some action words, excitement words, without distracting the reader. You got to be careful with that too. So there's 3,000 changes, and then I added pictures. I kept the pictures from before, and then I added pictures like the plane crash that I witnessed in Kathmandu, Nepal. Pictures of the smoldering, twisted steel. I have pictures of Victor strewn, whatever, on the bed, taking off his socks when he was, recovering from his drug overdose. Like I have, so added pictures, and then a surprise happy ending, which, I got married. Pete, I basically say at the end, I guess I can't be ruining it because people know me, they know I got married, but maybe you want to edit it out. But at the very end, I say, P.S. Fong and I, her name in the book is Fong. Fong and I were married on January 20th, 2021.
Wow.
Every book should have a happy ending. And that's how I end. The end.
Wait a minute, 2021? Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not good with the calendars. All right. So let's, could you, I'm sure our
and
reader.
A new cover, a modified cover. It's the same, but it's got these curtains like Broadway show curtains with a tassel right here. It's just kind of, and it's, it's a second edition. So it looks a little different, but it's the same cover.
Yeah. Well, definitely. It sounds like a must have, a new must read. So is there any way you're going to float me a picture of you and the new bride so I can put it on the video? Are we going to see
Yeah,
that?
I'll text it to you as soon as
Okay.
we're
All
done.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot thank you enough. Before I let you go, do you have any advice if you could do it all over again for our listeners and our potential authors?
For the book or the travel?
Anything,
Oh,
anything.
well, the travel thing was, I would say, don't worry about packing every type of clothing for every situation. Leave some room for purchases while you travel, because those purchases become more meaningful. It's like, they're the clothes you want to wear all the time because you bought them, at this really cool boutique in Split, Croatia. Now it's like the only hoodie you ever want to wear again, but you've got all these clothes you schlepped from home. And the other thing is, for digital nomads who are running their business, is don't worry about, you got to travel lighter. Like, I brought like all my checkbooks with like the leather cover and like every account I have, and like none of that was necessary. Like paper clips and stapler. Like, when am I going to use a stapler when I'm on the road? I wasn't, so pack lighter. And as far as writing the book, gosh, it just, here's the thing. I talk to so many people who say, I have a book written, or I wrote the book. I started to write a book that was 10 years ago. I haven't finished it. I want to write a book. I talk to so many people at various stages of the fact that don't have the finished product.
Mhm.
So, if you have a vision and you have the idea and you think it's good, you're going to be so happy. You're going to be so happy that you followed through, that it was the hardest thing you ever did. But it's like my dad told us every night at the dinner table when he wasn't working at night, which was about half the nights, he would say, anything good is worth sweating over.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
All right.
I would like to say that.
That's fantastic. All right. So again, CAPE is C is what?
Celebratory,
Adventuresome,
adventurous,
adventuresome,
adventurous,
adventurous.
purposeful, and extraordinary.
Okay.
I'll
And
I'll
yeah,
text you that.
and
It's also in the second edition. I have it in the key, what do you call it? A glossary.
mhm.
I have a glossary in both editions. You'll see it there, and I talk about Cape life in the epilogue, talk about Cape life in the prologue, and so it's all over the second edition, so you can't miss it.
All right. Well, I guess we can call you the Cape Crusader. So,
I like it. Thank you. Yeah.
all right, Phil. Well, I'm sure this interview can't end fast enough for you. So, it's just I cannot. It's just been great talking to you. I've
Me
really
too.
been looking forward to it. I love the book.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're going to sell 1 million just from this podcast alone. So, yeah, you take care of yourself. And for my listeners and viewers out there, I just want to say that. Again, go out and check out this book by Phil Nicozisis or Nicosizis.
Nicozisis. Yeah, Nicozisis.
Nicozisis,
Yeah.
and you're gonna love it, and it has so much inner wisdom in it that Phil's very modest and he's not really getting into the depth of the book, but it is fantastic. So please check it out in the second edition, and also don't forget the audio edition, and all those links are available at booksinhindsight.com. So all my
Thank you.
readers, remember, Phil, I want to say goodbye to you before we go. So goodbye, Phil. Take care of yourself.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your show.
Well,
Really a true honor. Thank you so much.
the honor's all on this side, let me tell you. So for all my listeners out there and all my viewers, remember what we always say at Books in Hindsight. Oh, I guess we don't say right on, we say keep on reading.
This has been Books in Hindsight with your host, Matthew Hines. Please join us for our next podcast and look for our archives on iTunes and go to thehindsight.com. That's HEINES site.com for great books by Matthew Hines and other great authors.
The Greekophile outtakes.
Why is that? Okay. Oh, the meeting's being recorded. Okay.
Yeah,
View.
that's how I get it on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So,
where
start
are
video.
you?
I'm right
There
there.
you are.
Get out.
Bill, you're the best looking guy you're
Aw.
the best looking guys I've ever seen, but
Well,
you're the best looking guy I've ever had on my podcast. Are you Greek? What is
yeah,
that?
100% Greek. Whoop.
Spartan? Are you from Sparta?
No, actually, we're from an area called Epiros, which is in the northern region, which includes modern day Albania and is the home of Homer, the first historian, who's the father of history.
Yeah,
And
that's around Alexander's country, isn't it?
That's right.
Mhm.
So,
Well, you're talking to a Greekophile, so
oh wow, that's very nice.
although
Then
no,
Milao. No, don't speak Greek.
no linguistics.
Okay,
No, I'm history. Not
great.
literally, hopefully, but no, I studied history in college. So, and one of my favorite periods is the Greek period, and like in that movie, The Big Fat Greek Wedding, I go
Yeah.
around telling people that same thing. That's because of the Greeks. That's because of the Greeks.
All
Our
right.
sorority and fraternity system, our
That's right.
education,
That's
all
right.
of it. And I've actually written a book, and I'm not here to plug my book, but yeah, I do talk a lot about the Greek
Please.
contributions to society.
Sure.
So it's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you. Speaking of Greek, you don't have to be actually Greek to be Greek. Being Greek is simply a way of thinking,
Mhm.
based on the ideals. So, anybody can be, the way we look at it, especially someone like me who doesn't really speak the language well, just
Mhm.
happen to, be born that way. And our ethnicity is really an accident. All of us. It's just a way of thinking and identifying with the ideals. So self-determination, responsibility, also self-government, all these things.
Freedom.
Democracy, freedom. That's
Yep.
exactly right.
And of course, your loyal, or I mean, your obligations to the society.
Right.
I think that's their greatest thing. And just I don't know if you're into Greek literature, but who is it? Who wrote the frogs? Aristophanes. That's my favorite. So I don't know if you've ever read Aristophanes, but just a great playwright and whatever. So, yep. And the frogs is just a great play. So, all right.
You would have me on that because for me, being Greek is also visiting the homeland and enjoying a cocktail underneath an umbrella on the beach.
Yeah, don't start. And that's why we're not going to talk about scuba diving, because I know you've been diving off Greece and anyway. So we're going to talk about your book. That's what we're here for.